Hey there, guys and gals. Welcome to the final video for War of the Ring card rankings. This time we're doing Free People strategy, so the usually superior cards. Just real quick, some people were kind of throwing the idea of getting the expansions involved with the existing cards. They go up and down for sure, depending on the expansions you're playing, alongside just the expansions themselves. So I'm thinking maybe when Kings comes out, and when I get more accustomed to Warriors, which I plan to do soon, I'll just do a full-on, just all expansion ranking, and any cards that have a significant ranking change due to the expansions, I will like kind of redo in that video specifically. But with that said, let's get on to this final ranking for now. Again, the top, it's a system on 3 5s. The top effect on a scale 1 to 5, the combat effect on a scale 1 to 5, and then flexibility. What point in the game can you use it? Is one just way better than the other, and there's really no choice involved? That will hurt the flexibility score. So the lowest score can be 3, highest can be 15. Let's get on with it. So we start out with a power to great. So this puts the elves down a step, and you can't go in or attack Lorien, Rivendell, Greyhavens, unless you burn a dice and a army, not strategy, an army card and a character card. And so it's quite the price that Shadow has to pay to get rid of this card. It's such a ridiculous effect that, it's kind of insane that it exists in a game with 24 cards, because when you pull it turn 1, it's almost broken. When you pull it at the end game, how good is it? But I think this effect I will definitely give a 5. If it didn't give you the Elven muster, it'd probably be slightly worse, but the fact that it puts them down a step, it's just strictly better than a muster die. It's doing what a muster does with a big bonus of at least killing one of Shadow's die and potentially good cards. Funny enough, the cards that were all in the F tier in my Shadow card rankings were all the ones you typically get rid of to get rid of power 2 great, so that lines up. But yeah, for sure, I think a 5. Yeah, the effect's just ridiculous. No quarter is our first combat. So no quarter is you get a hit, you get another hit. So with the character deck specifically, you had a lot of companion kind of effects, and they were mostly offensive. I guess not mostly. Yeah, I guess they're kind of 50-50. And the strategy deck is kind of more focused, I guess. Like, there's some offensive stuff, mostly 2 I'm thinking of, no quarter being one of them. The other kind of can be offensive, confusion, but yeah, I think if you wanted a combat, like, offensive card, I don't think no quarter is the best. It's strong if Shadow's going for really just kind of bold, reckless kind of attacks. 5 orcs versus 3, or even 5 orcs versus 2 guys. No quarter could hurt, but you're still only rolling 2 die, so very limited in how effective it can be. I mean, it is just a good effect. Like, it helps, but is it breaking new ground with what it does? I don't think so. I think it's average. I think it's a 3. It's nice, but again, if you just have a low army, like a Woodland Realm, 2 units, and you have no quarter, it's not going to help, because the odds of you even rolling a single hit are low, and this card does nothing if that happens. So it has a chance to whiff as well. I think that has a impact on the score. Flexibility, I think power 2 great's very flexible. I don't know, I'm tempted to give no quarter a 4. Nah, I think because of the whiff, it'll go down to a 3. All right, stay on track here. Yeah, I think flexibility is fantastic, because while it does seem like, okay, this is only focusing on the elves, or if the elves just aren't involved, well, it helps you get them involved. Like, if they're ignoring the elves, it helps you get them closer to war. Yeah, and you never know. I've had a lot of games where maybe I don't go the elves, maybe Woodland Realm only or something, and they're mustered at war. I'm not going to touch the other ones because, they're at war. Yeah, but maybe towards the end of the game, turn 10, Shadows on the Misty Mountains, Rage of the Dunlending, suddenly, if Power Too Great was up, that would actually have quite a good value. I think even when you draw it late game, it has some value, potentially. I don't think it's a dead card. And no quarter is super easy to play. The odds of it going off are completely random. There's no, obviously the bigger the army, the more likely it'll go off, but it's an effect that doesn't require anything technically. So it is you're never unhappy to draw this even in the late game because it might save your butt. I'll give it a 5, I think. Yeah, because the Elven Strong, there's so many. You're protecting 3 of them. And elves are always a target at some point. Usually Woodland Realm, but yeah. So it's a 5, a 3, and a 5, I believe. Yes, so 13. So Power Too Great is an A. Yeah, I think really just no quarter being, again, can be good, but can also whiff. Help and Look For. So Help and Look For is if there's an adjacent army under siege, you can attack that army with with the army you're in. And the shadow rolls 1 die less for every unit in that stronghold that's being attacked. Notably, I don't think the card even says this, which has led to lots of tears for newer players, is the nation doing this card needs to be at war. You can't take offensive actions if you're not at war. It just doesn't, you can't. So that is single-handedly kind of kills the value of this card, because your initial thought would be, okay, the Dew line, the Northeast, Dale, Erebor, Woodland Realm, this is perfect. I have 3 different nations. Well, what if the dwarves are at war and I've got 4 elites in there and then Woodland Realm gets attacked? Oh, nosers. Let's play Help and Look For. That's a great time for this card. But typically, the nation that's at war is the one being attacked and the other ones are just watching, which is very on theme. But for a card like this, it really makes it difficult to actually properly use. Now, the effect itself is ridiculously terrifying. You're basically guaranteeing that Shadow Army will retreat unless there's only 1 unit in the stronghold left. So I think the effect itself, I think it goes up to a 2. I think initially it's a 1 just because of how limited it is. With free people, the odds of being able to pull this off, very low. You don't see it often. Usually when it gets used, it's because Shadow messed up. North's at war and Dale gets to muster 2 elites while you're still trying to conquer Woodland Realm. You just decided not to take care of Dale. Then this gets played on you. It's kind of a preventable effect, even if the stars align and the condition is met. But the effect is extremely good. There is a kind of a fear of it, so I'll give it a 2. No quarter is a 3. Flexibility is a 1. Easy peasy. Again, no quarter can be used, but you typically see this card used for no quarter, and I don't blame anybody for it. Now, sometimes you'll have those games where you use it for no quarter, and then later on you're like, damn, I really wish I had the top effect, but it's not that often. It's not flexible whatsoever. Help and Look For is an effect that requires setup, and free people do not have the luxury of setup the majority of their games. So, it's a 2, a 3, 5, and then a 1, so 6. Just narrowly escapes the F ranking and goes to D. Alright, Book of Mizarble. So, this is you move all companions on the board. Notably, you're not separating them, you're just moving them. If anybody is in Eredluin or Erebor, the dwarves go straight to war. Doesn't matter where they are. So, really good effect, because not only does it let companions move with a Palantir or a muster, it also just brings the nation straight to war. Really good nation to have at war. We'll get to the other one in a bit, but I definitely think this is superior because the dwarves are out of the way enough where you should be able to get some value if you put them to war decently early. And they're in the Northeast, so if you get them to war, muster enough units, they kind of protect everybody, really. You put some of them in Dale, keep Erebor somewhat tight. Well, now those units in Dale can reinforce any stronghold. At least up there, Woodland Realm or Erebor. So it's nice. So yeah, I think I'll give it a 4. I think I don't think it's perfect because sometimes you just don't have companions on the board. Sometimes companions just aren't near those places. It takes setup. Again, another setup card, which is usually not a luxury free people have. I think with the effect itself, I'd be like more willing on a 2 or a 3, but the fact that you move companions with a Palantir or Muster, it makes it so you can move companions with 4 of your or every single result on your action die. That's just really flexible. It's nice. Okay, and then the combat advantageous position. So this is no matter what, Shadow is hitting on, or their combat is being decreased by 1. Combat roll. So they'll always hit on 6s. That's just the rule in the rule book. If they roll a 6, they hit. So if they play Desperate Battle, Cruel as Death, Devilry of Orthanc, Relentless Assault, this card counters all of those. So it's definitely seen as weaker, and that's because it has the chance to do nothing if they just don't play one that gives them a benefit. It feels a little bad, but this is actually deceptively strong. So I brought it up briefly in the past, but if the Shadow plays a character card in a combat, advantageous is always a good bet because there are 3 Shadow character cards that increase their chances to kill you, and 2 out of 3 of those add +1 to their combat. So if you see them play a character card, you can safely play advantageous. If the 1 in 3 happens, so be it. But you have a good chance of countering it. And you can still counter strategy cards too, potentially, if you just have nothing else to play. There's no harm in that. But yeah, getting your Devilry canceled. And that's another thing. If there's an Isengard unit in the battle, this is an extremely consistent card to play. Yeah, if you're at Helm's Deep, or there's a... Less so if there's a guy in Lorien, but, you know, it's still a safe bet. I think the combat... And here's another thing. So, if they play Swarm of Bats, this is the perfect card to play. Just think about it. They play Swarm of Bats, you don't play a card, they get a +1 to their leader reroll. But if they play Swarm of Bats and you play Advantageous Position, you cancel that leader reroll from happening, the +1 on their leader reroll. So technically, Advantageous Position still works against Swarm of Bats. It technically does the same thing. It gets you the same end result. One of their 5 dice that they roll on their combat leader, one of those is not getting a +1. So I think I'll give it 3. It's average. It's really strong when it works, but a good chunk of effects it can just not work. Like even Deadly Strife, okay, you take away their coin flip, that helps. But if they get 1 or 2 hits, you know, they're still rolling 3 coin flips, you know, it can help, but... And then not to mention all the other ones that just doesn't really do anything with. I'm comfortable giving it an average because it does have kind of a reputation of just not doing anything, but I do think it is better. You know, that's the thing though. How often does Shadow play character cards this cycle? And when they are they actually trying to kill you, or are they just trying to cycle? Yeah, with that mindset, sometimes it happens. Sometimes as free people, you actually want your strongholds to die so the Witch King can't cycle when you're about to destroy the ring in 2 moves. So it can actually hurt you a little bit. But, alright, let me stop rambling. Flexibility. That's a little tough. So with the character cards, a lot of them focused on companions, so I kind of was more lenient on the flexibility because it's kind of what you're, you know, expected. You're expected to get companions involved with those cards to make them good, so... strategy, I'm not going to be as lenient. I think it just goes to a 3 because having companions on the board takes setup. Granted, you can have Gandalf go do it if you put... But not at Fangorn. You have to plan it ahead of time. You have to put them in Grey Havens or Woodland Realm. But aside from Gandalf, this is not a consistent card to pull off. And you draw it at the wrong time, it just doesn't do anything. Like you can use it, I guess, to get Gandalf to a stronghold, Minas Tirith, Lorien for 1 last minute kind of defense if you're preemptive about it, but it's not very flexible. Advantageous position. By the way, I didn't bring it up, but advantageous position can only be played if the defending army is in a free people's nation. That usually doesn't really matter. Yeah, it rarely comes into effect. I think Osgiliath is the only time people accidentally play this card when they shouldn't, but yeah, it's a very defensive card, which makes sense with the name of it. So I'll give it 3. So all in all, comes up to a 10. So Book of Mizarble goes to a B. Swords and Eriador. So this is you get an elite or regular North guy in Shire, and same thing with Dwarf in Arid Luin. Which, if you don't know what Arid Luin is, I don't blame you. It is in the northwest above Grey Havens. And you get to draw a strategy card. So yeah, this card, it's not great. It can be. I brought it up in the beginning of the video, but this is more, it feels better in expansions, I feel. Because, you know, if you separate Gimli, the dwarves have more consistency of getting into play. That guy in Arid Luin can combine with the Shire and combine with Ettenmoors. Like, that's the dream. But that's a lot of dice. And again, in expansions where, you know, in Warriors, Strider is Aragorn. He's building an army of the dead in the south. You have 6 dice as soon as possible. You have keepers giving you a 7th die. These things can happen more accurately. You know, especially in Warriors where Ents are protecting Rohan and Lorien, and Dead Men are protecting Gondor and Rohan. Eagles are protecting the Dew Line, and the Dew Line's just stronger in expansions, so maybe the Northwest sees more. You know, how are they going to react to that when they're just struggling to take their points? But in base game, this effect is awful. I feel like you only play it for the Shire Elite and the card draw, and the Shire Elite, it's not very consistently attacked. But yeah, it's not like the worst card on the planet. Funny enough, it's in the same area. This card's very similar to Monsters Roused, where the effect itself isn't fantastic, but it's not like a bad card to play. Like, you're not insane for playing it. It doesn't hurt to have more units on the board. Units that will likely not get mustered. It's not like you're going into the Elven Force Pool. But you're not in a rush to play it. I think I'll give it a 2. I think just the fact that the card draw in the Shire Elite can maybe protect it from Rage of the Dunlendings, I think it puts it up a little bit. So 2. Advantageous is a 3. Flexibility, I mean, I guess, yeah, it's very flexible. Because, so if it was just the recruitment effect, I think I'd give it a 2. But because you get a card draw as well, I'm kind of more on the average side, I'm thinking. Because it's not like you draw a strategy card and you're like, oh, thank God, I can protect Arid Luin. And yeah, so I should probably say, if you don't know, Arid Luin, that elite getting in there isn't more for military purposes. It's actually great to just throw him in Grey Havens. The problem is Grey Havens very rarely gets attacked. So how much is that extra 3 health really helping? Not a lot. But yeah, I think I'll give it 3. Just for the card draw and the Shire Elite. Like, you know, it's not a bad idea to play it. You'd rather have more, but it is like a flexible card. You can technically play it, get another card. And Advantageous, again, is pretty easy to play. I think if Advantageous was a little harder to play, maybe it would go down more. But yeah, I'm comfortable with a 3. That might be wrong, but I'm going with it. So 6... It was what, 2, 3, 3, so 8. Swords and Eriador goes to C. Kindred of Glorfindel, you get an elite or regular in Rivendell and get another strategy card. So of all the Elven recruitment cards, this is the worst, but it's still good. It's basically doing what Swords and Eriador does, but in a more relevant location. Because even if they don't attack Rivendell, Rivendell is in a better location to go on the offense. So, unfortunately for this card, the Elven Force Pool is so small that this card can actually hurt you. So, the effect would probably be a 4 with the card draw because of its location, and elves are probably at war. But I think because this card consistently has hurt me in the past with Kirdans and Thranduils and Celeborns, when I want to play those ones, this one just kind of steals an elite. You know, you can muster a regular, but that's risky with casualties, so I think I'll just give it a 3. I think it's average. I think it does what you want, gets you a new card, but it can backfire. It's not a net win. Advantageous is a 3. Flexibility, I think the flexibility is just a 5. You can play it for the top effect for a new card and a semi-relevant elf, or you can just play it for a really good combat that can be played anywhere and has a decent chance of going off. So I think Kindred of Glorfindel, what's that, 2 3s and a 5, so 11, goes up to a B. Power of Tom Bombadil, my yellow boot boy. He musters the north down 1 step, and then you cannot go into or attack the Shire, Old Forest, and 1 more. I want to say Buckland. Not really relevant, but it's there. They have to discard this card the same way they would Power 2 Great, which is get rid of a die, an army card, and a character card. It's not as good, not even close to Power 2 Great. It's a similar effect. I love that Tom Bombadil's in the game. It's got great theme points. I think it needs another effect to be good. I think it's a 2, because strictly a 2 for the North muster. The North is very swingy. If they get to war early, get 2 elites in Dale, the Northeast is disgusting. Excuse me. But so often Dale gets conquered. You can start maybe mustering in Carrick, but good luck. Unless you have Aragorn with 6 dice, it's hard to get them to do anything. It's kind of out of your control. But I don't know. I feel like it needs another effect. I don't know what else to say about it. It's just kind of mediocre. Protecting a city is not as strong as the other one that protects 3 strongholds. It's just a city. Again, I'm trying not to make these like, what would I want this card to be instead? Too often, but I feel like for some cards, there should be some thought put into it about what it should kind of more do. But again, the northwest part of the board's so empty and not used, and the game begins when the Fellowship's formed in Rivendell, so I can't even think of anything. Like maybe if the Fellowship was adjacent to a North nation, they heal. I don't know, something like that. Tom Bombadil is pretty powerful. But as it stands, it's a 2. Advantageous position is a 3. Flexibility. You're spending a muster or a Palantir to get a North muster, and it goes on the board. I mean, it does protect that city. It will, if they go for 4 cities, it might de-incentivize them to do so. So it's decently flexible. I think it's overall just kind of a weak card. Yeah, because Power 2 Great, I mean, if we're just they're in the same deck, so we have to compare them to each other. Like, Power 2 Great is so blatantly better in almost every way. Maybe the North should get mustered down 2. I don't know. Basically for after turn 2 or 3, you're spending this card just to protect the Shire. You know, usually an army's in position, so if you were to play this to sneakily get the North to war, they're just going to destroy Dale. So I don't think it's very flexible at all. Yeah, I think I'll give it a 2, flexibility, because, I mean, if you want to muster the North, they're just not attacking it, you can play it. So it was a 2 on the effect, 3, 5, and then a 2, so 7. Power Tom Bombadil is a D. Alright, Celeborn's Galadrim. So this is muster a regular or elite in Lorien, and then draw a strategy card. So way better than Kindred, not even close. I think this is a 5. It is in a central location on the board. It's right beside 2 strongholds that they can easily go for military. It's a clear target. It's already a big pool or a big army when the game starts, so just buffing up an army that's already pretty good is really nice because you just roll more combat dice. You make this extremely strong. If you get a companion in there, you're rolling 5 dice. Yeah. And you get a card draw, so there's very rare times you don't want to play this card. Maybe it depends on the elf force pool, or if you've already thrown 3 in Woodland Realm, something crazy like that. But yeah, I think it's a 5, easy. Daylight. So Daylight is the shadow only rolls 3 dice instead of their normal 5, which is better than it sounds because they can only do leader rerolls for the dice they own. So not only do they roll 3 dice in their combat, they roll 3 dice on their leader. So you're technically almost taking away half of their dice because they're only rolling 6 maximum instead of 10. So yeah, you're basically cutting their chance to hit almost in half if you look at it in a statistical sense. One of the strongest combats in the game because of that. It's just a straight up effect. When you play it, it happens. Unlike Advantageous, unlike No Quarter, it 100% will annoy the shadow player. The best use for it is when they play a good card, Deadly Strife, where they're expected 4 or 5 hits. Now they can only get 3. They probably will get them, but better than 5. Particularly if you have a big force and you do 5 back. Yeah. Daylight's an easy 5. You want to cry when it gets Swarm Abated, which I think that's enough proof to tell you that it's a 5. Flexibility. Yeah, flexibility. I mean, so with the strategy cards, I'm not going to account that these only take effect in one area because that is the point of the cards. It's not like, oh, this card only helps Lorien. Like, yeah, no shit. That every card kind of helps a certain place. So I'm not docking points for this only being good in one place. It's not like the Shadow. The Shadow can put their guys anywhere, usually. This is very more restrictive, and that's just how the deck works. So there's no downside that this is only Lorien. Yeah, I think it's a 5. Daylight can be played anywhere and will do something great. Celeborn's perfect to play when you get it, because you get that card draw too. Nothing, yeah, so perfect 15, straight to S. The last battle. Let me see if I can get this effect right. So I'm pretty sure it's if Aragorn is with an army outside of a Free People nation, like their borders, you play this card, and then I think the movement, the character die, don't get added to the hunt box when the Fellowship moves. That sounds great, doesn't it? Sure does. Well, there's more. When the Fellowship gets revealed, this card gets discarded. It's so bizarre. I don't understand why that happens. So it's a 1. This is the very definition of setup. Like, this thing takes so much setup to accomplish. You got to get a Aragorn with an army, preferably a big one, so he doesn't get one-shotted by somebody, outside of a nation. So they're not defending. They're being bait. It's one of the coolest themed cards. They are literally being bait for Shadow, both in military and the hunt. Perfect. Love it. It's distracting Sauron. The eyes are doing less damage when they're in Mordor. Beautiful. But for some reason, when Frodo is revealed, it goes away. I don't know. Yeah, that single-handedly kills the card. Maybe it should have been if Frodo gets revealed, he takes 1 corruption. I don't know. Getting rid of the card that you probably spent 4 or 5 dice getting into play just because you got unlucky with the hunt, that is just setting yourself up to be pissed. Nobody plays it. Nobody ever will play it. Maybe if it gave you a free move like There's Another Way does when you play it, it'd be better. I don't know. The way it is now, it's trash. So it's a 1. Daylight's a 5. Flexibility is a 1 because it takes obnoxious setup to play. So you will never see this played. It's just Daylight. People, when you watch content videos, when they draw last battle, they say Daylight. They do not say the last battle. So Daylight single-handedly saves it from the F tier, goes up to D as a 7. Alright, Riders of Theoden. So this is, you can muster a regular or elite with a leader in Edoras, or where a companion is in Rohan. So this is the only way you can get a companion into a stronghold under siege with Rohan, which is balanced because they have so many other cards that let them do it outside of sieges. But what are the odds a companion will be there? Yeah. So I think this is just objectively weaker than Celeborns, Thranduils, all the other ones, Dane Ironfoot, because you're usually 9 out of 10 times putting units in a city. So it just doesn't have as much value. It's not, I'm under siege. Oh, thank God I can reinforce the stronghold that's under siege. No, you're reinforcing the adjacent two spaces away region to hopefully do something after that stronghold dies. So preferably you want to draw it early so you can play it, then move out Edoras with an extra guy. But yeah, I think it's an average card. I give it a 3. You can do some silly stuff like move Gandalf to Fords and then play this card if they kind of left Rohan abandoned. But if you ever see a companion go to Fords or East Eminent, yeah, you can expect that. And even if Aragorn was already sitting in East Eminent to threaten dead men, and then he plays this, I mean, unless you literally left Rohan empty as Shadow, there's Aragorn with 1 or 2 health. Yeah, kill him. So, yeah, you don't see the companion thing get used a lot. I mean, if a Hobbit gets the Helm's Deep, people are less inclined to attack it because of this card. That's pretty good, but I give it a 3. I think, yeah, Daylight's a 5. Flexibility, I think this is a really flexible card. Because Edoras is usually one of the last things to be taken in a game. Early Rohans are just recipes for disaster, so the stronghold that this reinforces usually is there. So you can play this. You don't get a card draw or anything, but Rohan is in the middle of the board. If you can get them to war, this can definitely help. I think it's a very flexible card. You're not upset to play Riders, assuming they're going to get 10 points elsewhere, which might be possible. But Daylight, too, I think... Yeah, you see both of these played consistently. You see Riders played a lot, and you see Daylight played a lot. So I think it's a very flexible card. I'm willing to give it a 5. So that brings it to a 13, which is an A. Círdan ships. Oh, yeah. So elves are at war. You can put 2 elite units, 2 elven elite units in a Western... What's the term? I'm drawing a blank on the term. Against the water. So typically, it has to be with an army. So this is strictly almost always used for Dol Amroth. It can be used for any army against the water. I have once used it where Fords of Isen retreated west, and then I played Círdan ships through like Legolas there and try to pull off some cheeky stuff. But you won't see that. That was dumb. It was fun, but dumb. But yeah, it's going to reinforce Dol Amroth with 2 elites out of nowhere. It sucks. It does have that kind of requirement to have the elves at war. But this is the ultimate counter to Corsairs of Umbar, and typically the elves are at war when the Southrons are at war. Not always, but usually they get to war around the same time. Unless Shadow specifically goes out of their way to make sure the elves aren't at war when they go for Dol Amroth, which is smart, but depends on how the dice and cards work out. But regardless, I don't think it's a hot take. The effect is a 5. The restriction is the one nation that is almost always at war every game, both in base game and Lords and Warriors, because they're active. No sneaky Chief of the Ringwraiths, Gothmog only kind of gameplay is going to keep them from going to war. And the keepers, of course. So, yeah, this card in all essence of the game is always good. So it's a 5. So, and then we move on to charge. Yeah, charge. So charge is when before the fight starts, however many elites you have, that you roll, and then you get hits. So if you're hitting on 5s, you'd hit on 5s with the charge, and if you're trying to besiege something, you'd hit on 6s. So, yeah, charge isn't the greatest. I don't know. not the greatest, but it is still really good. So here's the thing. It's if you want to do hits, typically you might have 2 elites in a stronghold, so you just get to roll an extra 2 die. There's no benefit. It's not like onslaught or anything like that, or it's the same as we come to kill, except you get to do it before the fight starts. So it has the potential to be extremely strong, and it has the potential to be extremely bad. Like it can end up being a dead card or a dead combat card when just depending on what your strongholds look like. You just don't always have those choices. If you get 3 hits, you have to kill an elite and a regular, so your combat, like, you have no choice there. But in other instances, they get 2 hits, you have 1 elite, 4 regulars, you have 2 charges in your hand, you just played 1. Okay, well, I took 2 hits. Do I want to make my combat strength 3 and then get the roll charge next turn? Yeah, it's you take the elite, which just turns off the card. So it has a restriction that's usually okay. You usually have 1 elite in a fight, but to make it good, I don't think it's easy to make it good. Yeah, like you're hitting on 5s. Dreadful Spells is a meme because it almost always whiffs somehow, even though it's hitting on 5-ups, because you're expected 1 hit on 5 dice. Yeah, you're rolling like 2 with charge. It has that potential, but it's not great. I think charge is a 2 when compared to all the other effects in this deck. I don't like it. It can be good, but if there's a stronghold with 4 elites, I don't know what Shadow's doing. I mean, sometimes it gets that desperate, but when they attack it, they know what charge is coming. So, again, yeah, if a stronghold's that strong, every combat effect is going to be godlike. So I'm going to give it a 2. Flexibility. Funny enough, despite how good the effect is, this card is not very flexible because the elves do need to be at war. Again, that will happen. But it only reinforces 1 place. Technically, it reinforces Grey Havens. That's fair. It happens. It does happen. But them attacking the Grey Havens is so freaking telegraphed. It takes so long where you can just muster normally. So how high is that value really? It's mostly for Dol Amroth. If they draw an early Corsairs, if they make sure the elves aren't at war, like with really good play, even if they walk to Dol Amroth without Corsairs before they fully commit to the elves, like they just have Woodland Realm under siege and just let it sit there. Like, yeah, play Thranduils, I don't give a shit. I'm gonna go take Gondor before you can play Círdan Ships. Like, they can counterplay it. And once Dol Amroth's gone and Pelargir's gone, you can't play the top effect. It's not flexible. And charge is an extremely unflexible combat. Because again, you can technically play it, but yeah, setting restrictions on free people combat cards hurts because they already have a lot of things going against them. So flexibility, I think it's a 2. Yeah, it's not flexible, so yeah, I'm thinking Círdan's gonna have a bad rating here. So it comes out to a 9. So Círdan Ships is a C. That's funny. Yeah, maybe I'm being harsh on charge. Maybe. I mean, it's nice to throw those 2 dice as a Hail Mary, but if it's a big army, what's that really going to do for you? I'd rather have a defensive card, personally. Any other strategy card, with the exception of no quarter, I'd rather have. Alright, Guards of the Citadel. So this is, you must a regular elite leader in Minas Tirith, and that's it. So you get a leader instead of a card draw. For Minas Tirith specifically, I think that's fine. I think we'd all prefer a card draw, but this is a very big target. It's a very easy target because Mordor's right there. So this card, usually you can get an elite in the Minas Tirith before they attack it, unless you just roll bad. It just takes 1 muster. They attack Osgiliath, you get an elite in there. So Guards has the benefit of reinforcing a stronghold that's already had a fight, which is really good. I think it's a 5. It's a easy target. Minister is always attacked almost every game at some point, and they usually have a full stronghold. So this is just the odds of them one rounding my 4, 5, 6, 7 health stronghold is low. If it happens, damn. But this can be that reinforcement, especially if you get Aragorn Boromir there. They're giving you just you can take a regular as a casualty, and then you get their combat for Captains of the West, so you still have max combat. The moment that combat just kind of breaks, you play this, and Jesus, yeah. It's a 5. Charge, 2. Flexibility, I think it's a very flexible card. Of course, if Minister is taken, can't play it for any. So the difference is technically you could play Celeborns for a card, even if Lorien's dead. Guards, just you can't play the top effect if Minister is dead. I think I will dock it a bit for the combination of charge and the fact that Minas Tirith is so close to Shadow that it's very easy for it to be the first target of a game. Yeah. So that can just make the top effect do nothing. So I think it's a 4. Yeah, I think mostly charge is kind of hurting that because, again, it's not really the most consistent combat. Thank God this is the last time I have to talk about it. So it comes out to 5, 2, so 7, and then 4, so 11. Yep, so Guards of the Citadel goes to B. All right, Dane Ironfoot's Guards. This is you muster a regular elite in Erebor with a leader. Same thing as Guards, except it's in Erebor. So the big benefit with this is you get a massive army in Erebor if you get this card. So I think it's an easy 5. People fear this card because if you get that regular in Iron Hills to Erebor, they already have 2 elites. Unlike Minas Tirith, they have 2 elites in there already. So you play this, you just have a full 2/3, 2-leader stronghold. The dwarves are terrifying if this card gets drawn. And this card will typically really hurt the Shadow's feelings. Yeah, Erebor would probably be target number 1 if the elves just weren't so good to get the war. So you don't want to attack them first because by the time you take them out, maybe there's an elite or 2 in Woodland Realm. So yeah, it's a 5. Valor. So if an elite is in a battle, same restriction as charge, you get a +1 to your combat. I think Valor's way better because the main downside of charge was you're usually only going to roll 1, maybe 2, maybe 3 dice. Let's just call it in the middle, 2. You get 2 extra dice that you roll on 5s. The benefit is these are extra. It's before a fight. But Valor just gives you a net gain on your entire combat roll by having an elite. So you're making your combat a coin flip, like a Deadly Strife would with Shadow, just for having 1 elite in your fight. Amazing. Way better. It has the downside of being an offensive card, but you do want offensive cards, and this is a great one because it's like Devilry of Orthanc if you're going on the offensive against the Stronghold. It's good for defense, it's good for offense. Offense is the best defense sometimes. Yeah, being able to just roll 5 hits with coin flips, that helps. It's not the best defensive card, but it can help, especially in the aforementioned Erebor. Yeah, that's a tough cookie to crack, and then you rolling 5 dice on coin flips doesn't hurt either. So yeah, I think I'll knock it a little. I think I'll bring it to a 4 because it doesn't help you defend strictly. Like I said, it does help technically by taking down their numbers, but that's not like something you can control. If you have a 4-1 army and then they have an 8-3 or 7-3 army, you getting an extra 2 or 3 hits is not gonna save the day. You'd much rather have a defensive card like Confusion, Shield Wall, Daylight. And when you're really looking for strategy cards combat wise, you're typically looking for defensive effects. So I'll knock it down to a 4 because its main use case is taking enemy strongholds and just again, it's nice to be able to hit better, but I could still whiff too. But yeah, I'd rather just get more guaranteed defensive effects usually. because on free people you are you are defending. That is your objective. You need to defend your points. So I'll give it a 4. And then flexibility, yeah, easy flexibility. I think it's a 5. Yeah, it's Erebor again is usually not the first target. It usually takes a long time for them to actually attack it. Southrons and Easterlings have to get involved. And then Valor's really easy to play. So easy peasy. It's a 5. So this comes out to a 14. Goes up to S. All right, Eomer, son of Eamund. This is recruit a regular, elite, and a leader. Regular or elite and a leader. In any free Rohan settlement. So it has to be a free one, so you can't do it under siege. But it has that added benefit of being able to be used in West Eminent or Fold. So it can be any settlement. Eomer is everywhere and nowhere. So yeah, this thing's, the fact that it's so versatile in that regard, I think it's a 5. Unlike Riders is very limited. It's one place. Eomer is the best one to get because you can reinforce Helm's Deep with it before they get there. They can be in forwards. You play Eomer. Oof. You can put them in Fold and start building an army in Fold if you want to roam. You can put them in West Eminent when you already moved out Edoras. You can put them in West Eminent if you wanted to reinforce the forwards. Such a great card. Valor 4. Flexibility, I think it's a 5. Again, Rohan's not usually attacked early. Even if it is attacked early, you still play it to get them in a settlement somewhere before it's fully conquered. And yeah, Valor's really easy to use. So this is another 14, straight up to S. Never unhappy to draw Eomer, unless it's kind of the end game or they just got a lucky Rohan attack. But again, if I knock points for a nation being decimated for these cards, they'd all be knocked because they're all usually regarding a specific place. Now, I know I knocked Círdan's for that, but the only reason I knocked Círdan's for that was because it requires the elves to be at war, so there's a time kind of restraint on it. Yeah, all the other ones can be played when they're still being attacked and can be played right away, turn 1. Yeah, Círdan's, it might sit in your hand for a while until elves are at war. That's why I got knocked for it. Alright, Thranduil's Archers. Recruit a regular or elite in Woodland Realm and then draw a card. Another strategy card. Yep, it's a really annoying card. I think it's a 5. Woodland Realm is almost always a target because of how tiny it is. And this makes it harder to take. And notably, if Woodland Realm is harder to take and rolls more dice and gets more hits, it makes the rest of the do line harder to take. This is why people typically don't bring Dol Guldur up there, because those hit points, sometimes you even struggle to take Woodland Realm with those hit points, especially with Thranduil. You're almost even. It's what, 5 against 7 or something like that? Yeah, you might struggle to take Dale after that. So yeah, Thranduil's just really annoying. And the card draw, chef's kiss, beautiful. One of the best cards to draw turn 1. Right there, power 2 great. Because you just get 2 card draws with Gandalf, and then you reinforce a stronghold that likely will be attacked. Easy 5. Valor's a 4. Flexibility. I think I'll knock this flexibility a little bit, because Woodland Realm is typically target number 1 in almost every game. So yeah, if you don't draw this early and they incentivize getting to Woodland Realm turn 2, turn 3, and take it out, you're stuck with Valor. So I'll knock it down to 4 for that. Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. So it was a 5-4-4, so that's a 13. So Thranduil is an A. Faramir's Rangers, you roll 3 dice against a North Ithilien or South Ithilien army, get hits on 5 up, and then you recruit a regular or elite and a leader in Osgiliath. So Faramir is strong on paper. It's kind of the combination of Minas Tirith's already big, and now you just have a 4 health, 1 leader army right in front of Minas Tirith defending it. The problem is you have to get it at a very specific time for the archer effect to attack North or South Ithilien. Typically when Shadow moves to those regions, they're going to attack the next die. Sometimes they preemptively do it. I try not to. I do it sometimes. Probably shouldn't. Usually better to only move out of Minas Morgul when you know you're going to attack soon, out of threat of this card. Notably, you can play this card without an army being there. That's not a requirement. You just get the muster effect. That's pretty strong. But again, similar to Woodland Realm, and the reason why guards got a lot of brownie points was Minas Tirith can be a target, an early target. And what's in front of Minas Tirith? Well, that's Osgiliath. So yeah, Osgiliath, the odds of it being occupied are usually pretty low. This does actually change in expansions. Sauron's not at war right away in expansions, so you have more lore accurate kind of Gondor attacks. But in base game, Minas Tirith is the number one way to get the Witch King, because usually they'll muster at once if they see you put your Barad-dûr army in Minas Morgul, and then you attack Osgiliath, and there you go, they're at war. Enjoy your Witch King. So Minas Tirith sometimes has some time, but Osgiliath, not really. I think I'll give it an average 3, because one half of the card effect is really difficult to time. But the recruitment's great. I think the problem with the recruitment, though... Oh, sorry. Let me rearrange here. I think the problem with the recruitment, though, is it doesn't really have much to do. It's not in a stronghold, so you're probably going to retreat the Minas Tirith. That's its main benefit. If they retreat the Pelargir, it's a long walk to Dol Amroth. Yeah. You can start mustering a Pelargir, I suppose. I'm comfortable giving it a 3, though. Because, again, it's not like the big thing with all the other cards are you're under siege already, you play it, and then you reinforce that siege. This is reinforcing a region that needs to be already occupied. So it's got some restrictions. It's like a worse AMR. So, yep, 3. And then we have Shield Wall. So Shield Wall is, if they get a hit, subtract it, or they get more than one hit, you subtract it by 1. I think Shield Wall is an easy 5. I'm going to keep this short and sweet because it is a consistent, beautiful effect. You don't want to take hits. Every hit they get when they're putting you under siege is a blessing to them. So taking away one of them sucks. It's great. It's what you want as free people. I think Shield Wall is an easy 5. People like the meme where they play Shield Wall and then Shadow only rolls 1 hit. Like, ugh, I wasted my Shield Wall. No, you didn't. You played Shield Wall because you wanted to take 1 hit. Or preferably 1 hit if they got 2. You took 1 hit, so you got the same end result. Yeah, I get it. I get the concept. It feels funny that it didn't do anything, but the end result is the same, so don't feel bad. Just play them. Shield Walls are great. So it's 5. And then flexibility. Yeah, flexibility I think is going to get knocked a bit too because Faramir's. I think flexibility is going to it too because you have to have Osgiliath occupied. Yeah. And it's not helping any sieges or anything like that. Again, it's a worse AMR with flexibility. Shield Wall helps, but if you don't draw this card at a very specific time, the top effect is a dead effect. Unless you retake things, but that's a whole other story. So it's a 3, a 5, and then a 2, so it goes up to 10. Right? 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep, math. So Faramir's Rangers is a B. So it actually matches up with Guards of the Citadel. I think it's saved entirely by Shield Wall compared to Charge. Fear Fire Foes. So this is the same thing as Book of Mazarbul, except if a companion gets to Bree or the Shire, the North goes straight to war. I think this is objectively worse than Book because not only is it strictly limited to the Northwest, you can't do Erebor like you could with Book. The North can't always help that well because, again, Dale gets taken usually pretty early, and if you were to play this, they will probably gun it for Dale if they are near it. Usually they are. Usually they're adjacent to Dale, so you play it, they're at war, whoopee, then they get killed. Yeah, if you wanted to do a Northwest Crusade, all for it. I love that, but that's not the strategic, valuable thing to do. Normally you want to get Dale, super buff to defend your strongholds, maybe go for Dol Guldur. Yeah, now I see value in this. If the Dol Guldur army goes north by itself. There's no orcs multiplying or anything. There could be value in playing this if you can set it up. Because even if they do take Dale, mustering in Karok when there's only a small Dolgador army up there, mustering in there early before the Southrunds, Easterlings get involved, that has value. But there's a lot of things aligning just to make this card do something like super efficient. Yeah, you usually have to retake Dale, so you need forces to do that. Yeah, and not to mention, again, it doesn't separate companions. They have to already be on the field, and they can only go to the northwest. It has to be in those 2 spaces in the northwest. Yeah, normally, say you wanted to play there and back again for its effect, you already have a companion in the northeast, so playing Book is not crazy. It's easy, but yeah, more limited. What should I give it? I think I gave Book a 4. I think Fear 5 Foes gets a 2. I think because the north going to war is less useful, so that knocks it, and then it being restricted to an entire half of the board, that also brings it down 1. Yeah, a companion playing Book of Mizarble in Erebor is usually a bad sign, because now they're now they're at war, can muster, and there's a companion there. Yeah, I mean, if Pippin's in Bree, he's not helping Dale. Yeah, so I'll give it a 2. Shield Wall's a 5. Yep, and then flexibility, I think I gave Book a flexibility of 3, maybe 2. No, I gave it 3. Yeah, Fear 5 Foes is not flexible. Not flexible for its effect. I think I'll give it the same, because I think the big reason I gave Book such high flexibility was the fact that you can move companions with any dice result, which is really nice. So I will buff it up for that. I'll give it a 3. So all in all, comes out to a 10. So it actually matches Book, mainly because of its combat. You might be thinking I'm overvaluing. Yeah, I can say it. Maybe. Shield Wall, maybe I am. Is Shield Wall equal to Daylight? Daylight's cutting the hits that they might get in half. Shield Wall is just taking 1. I don't know. I mean, with Daylight, if they play Deadly Strife, you're expected to get hit 3 times. With Shield Wall, you're guaranteed to only get hit a maximum of 4 times. If you're lucky, only 3. It's the fact that it's a guaranteed effect, I guess. I mean, Daylight is a guaranteed effect too. So maybe they're not even. Maybe I'm being a little too nice to Shield Wall, but honestly, with all my games I've played, Shield Wall saved my ass, and Shield Wall has cursed me as Shadow. It's completely screwed a Siege. If I'm going for that final, it's basically heroic death, really, without a downside. There's no downside to it. Heroic death at least kills a leader. Yeah, Shield Wall just doesn't do anything bad. Yeah, I'm going to stick to my guns and still say Shield Wall is amazing. All right, King Brand's Men. So this is recruit 2 regulars in Dale and then draw a strategy card. Right, so this effect is extremely good. I think the effect itself is a 5, because Dale is an extremely central target to the northeast, kind of double stronghold. With having those 2 extra regulars in there, they're more likely to survive. And if you scouts too, those guys are going into a stronghold with a leader too. Oh, excuse me. Rearrange here. So yeah, I think if we're judging it, we'll get to flexibility later, but if we're judging it by its effect, I think it's a 5. You're always happy to draw this card if you can play it. Shield Wall is a 5, and then flexibility is terrible. I think flexibility here is a 1, because Dale is so easy to conquer, and it usually is conquered turn 3, turn 2, turn 3. Yeah, a lot of times you draw it, you can't play it, which is a shame. I mean, you can still play it for the card draw effect, but yeah. Yeah, again, this is a card in expansions. It actually is better because the dew line's less appetizing, at least in Lords. Don't have any experience really with Warriors, but I'm assuming the equals also make it unappetizing, but still. Yeah, in base game, do is free real estate, and you want that point. So flexibility is a 1, I think. So 5, 5, 1, so it goes up to 11. So King Brandsman is a B. Alright, Emer Hill of Dol Amroth, which is muster a regular or elite and a leader in Dol Amroth. Pretty good. Yeah. I'm trying to think. So I know I gave guards a 5. And I think the big reason I gave guards a 5 was, I think I explained it. It's an easy first target. So drawing this card makes a huge difference. Also, it's likely that you got an elite in there already. So Dol Amroth's not the same. Dol Amroth, it's not likely you got elites in there early, because usually when Dol Amroth's attacked, it's because they played the cheat card and teleported into it. Yeah, in the instance where you already have 2 elites, you take some hits and then you can play this, fantastic, but it's less likely that that happens. A lot of the times you got the 3 guys in there, they Corsairs, you play this, and that's what you got. I think I'm going to give this effect a 4. I don't know. It's such a consistent target. Did I give guards a 5? I don't remember if I did or not. Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of drawing a blank on this one. It is. I guess I think I'll stick to 4, because unlike guards, unlike Celeborns, unlike Thranduils, if you play this and they don't attack Dol Amroth, it's kind of wasted. Ministers can get involved somewhere else. They can go to Rohan. Celeborn or Lorien obviously can go to Rohan or just go on offense. And Thranduil obviously can go to Erebor, Dale, anything like that. This card, yeah, if you play it and they just don't attack Dol Amroth, yeah, it kind of hurts. So I think I'll knock it a little, because it's not very... you can't do much with it if you're not under siege. So I'll give it a 4. Shield Wall's a 5. Flexibility, it's a very flexible card. I think the flexibility is a 5. Yeah, normally you can always play it. Yeah, if they wipe Dol Amroth early, but again, Dol Amroth shouldn't be getting wiped until turn 5-ish, 6-ish. So plenty of chances to play this card. I'll give it a 5. So extremely good card, 14. Goes up to S. That's kind of surprising. But I think it's just the Shield Wall in combination with just being a good card. Like, you can play both effects usually pretty consistently. None of them are really bad. I said at one point I docked off its combat, or its effect is like really edge case. Normally Dol Amroth will be attacked, so the most games that downside won't happen. It's always a good card to play. So actually, you know what? I'm kind of happy with it in S. I think it does fit up there. I don't think you're ever upset to draw Emer Hill. Alright, Grimbjorn, the old son of Bjorn. So this is you recruit a regular or elite and a leader in Karok. And bizarrely, you don't get to draw a card, because this card is not good. Yeah, so guards made sense. Emer Hill makes sense because those are strongholds. You know, you're already getting a big benefit from playing it. Those are strongholds. This is just a random settlement that takes 2 moves to get to a stronghold. Yeah, I feel like it's strictly, I guess it's on theme. I feel like it's strictly an offense card. You play this offensively. There are some times, I even have a video of it already, where you play it and you put them, instead of putting the one guy from Karok in Old Forest Road, you put all of them in there. You put the whole bear in there. You can do that. But that's a lot of die. A lot of dice you are throwing at one little effect that they might all get wiped anyway, because they're hitting on 5s. But yeah, it's not a great effect. You very rarely see it get played. I think I'm going to give it a 1. Yeah, the only time I could see any value for it is if you're going on military. And you've already mustered a little in Karok. You just get a free elite and a leader together. But yeah, I'm comfortable with a 1. So Scouts is you retreat before the fight. Extremely powerful card. I think easy 5. You get to just run away before any fighting takes place. You are not ambushed. The only thing that cancels this is Swarm of Bats, and those two have a rivalry as old as time. They are the Goku and Vegeta of War of the Ring. They are always at each other's throats. They fear each other sometimes. Yeah. When you see them play a strategy card against an army you want to scouts, the Death Note internal dialogue happens. Like, is he baiting me? Does he know I have it? He knows how many cards I've drawn. What are the chances? Oh, I'm falling for his trap. Yeah, it gets all in there. Yeah, it's an extremely strong card that always is in the back of the head of the shadow player. Easy 5. Flexibility, probably, yeah, it's a 1. The effect is so bad, you almost never want to play it. You will almost always see this as being used for scouts. Yeah. Maybe not a 1. I mean, Karok very rarely gets conquered, so you could technically muster somebody there with this and maybe threaten a retake on Dale. Maybe I'm being a little harsh on it. Maybe a 2, because yeah, you can still usually play. You usually don't want to, but if scouting was just not something you wanted to do and the board state let something in the Northeast happen, you could play this card and just try to go retake Dale. Maybe with an extra muster or something. It's possible. I'll give it a 2. I think I'm being a little harsh on it, on the old Grimbjorn. Yeah, so that brings it up to an 8. So Grimbjorn is a C. Mostly because of scouts. It's like Kierden Ships and Grimbjorn are opposites. Kierden Ships is in C because of its effect and its kind of overall shittiness on flexibility in combat, and Grimbjorn's the opposite. With combat at least. Alright, Red Arrow. So if Gondor is active, move Rohan down 1 step and then muster a regular elite and a leader in Edoras. Yeah, Red Arrow is very good. So, funny enough, I kept bringing up that a lot of these cards are better in expansions. Red Arrow is way worse. Because this card needs Gondor active, and the Witch King should be coming turn 2, maybe turn 3. Gondor's active. I think the downside to this is usually Edoras already moved, so they're not going to be with that army, but usually you can get them there unless they go for a New Powers Rising Alpha Strike. But extremely good effect. The downside is not really very relevant for its effect. It might be more of a flexibility issue, but yeah. Yeah, I gave Riders a 3. So I think I'm comfortable giving Red Arrow a 4 because it is still going in Edoras. It's not the most useful place, but I think what saves it is the muster. Yeah, getting Rohan muster down once makes a big difference. That means if they attack forwards and then attack Helm's Deep, you can start mustering. A lot more, even better yet, you muster them again naturally after that. They attack forwards, it's Muster City. And you don't want Rohan mustering, especially when they just got an elite and leader in Edoras. Very good. I think I'm willing to give it a 4. I think it's only knocked because they have to go in Edoras, which isn't always the most convenient place. Unlike AMR, who gets to go anywhere. Scouts is a 5. Flexibility. Yeah, so... Yeah, with base game, I don't really think it's much of an issue. Yeah, because yeah, if you draw at turn 1, it is a little unfortunate, for sure. But yeah, if a card is only kind of not flexible on turns 1 and 2, it's like the anti-Worm Tongue. Worm Tongue can only be used on turn 1 and 2. Red Arrow needs to wait a little. I don't think that's enough to detract it. I think you're happy to play both of these effects. And normally, at least me, I'm usually sad when I play the Scouts on it because I really wanted to play Red Arrow. So I'm willing to give it, I think it's a 5. because of all the aforementioned reasons with Riders of Theoden and Aemir. Usually Rohan's not completely dead until quite a bit into the game. So, yep, I'm happy to give it a 5. So what, it was a 4, 5, 5, so it is a 14 into the S. Spirit of Mordor. If an army has 2 different Shadow Nations in it, you can roll 5 dice, get hits on 5 ups. And then they just take hits. So this card is actually pretty good. You don't see it played often just because of how good Scouts is. But it is pretty damn good. You're basically just getting a free combat on an army, and sometimes 2 hits can make the difference. Not always, but this card has actually saved me quite a bit. It also has that chance to whiff, naturally, but hey, you're getting an extra combat on 5 ups. It's almost like a mega sudden strike, mega charge, but you are spending a dice to do it. Like, you're spending a whole die, and it's an army too. I didn't bring this up with Faramir, but Faramir is an army. To play it, that's awkward. Yeah, there's only 1 die side that you have. That's an army. So Spirit of Mordor is similar. If I ever want to play Spirit of Mordor, I end up usually having to burn a ring to do it, and I think that's why it doesn't get played very often. If it was a muster, I think you'd see this card played a lot more. But as it stands, it's really awkward to play. Yeah, I guess that's more of a flexibility thing. I think the effect itself, spending an entire free people die to just get like a max strength sudden strike, it can win you games. I think it's average. I think it's a 3. It's not groundbreaking. There's not a guaranteed effect. You should get 1 hit, but at the end of the day, you're only expected to get 1 hit from this. So statistically, it's not like a life-ending card for Shadow. So yeah, I'll just give it a 3. It can do a lot and it can do nothing. Scouts is a 5. Flexibility is where it'll get hit a bit. Both for the awkward die result that you need. You need an army or a Palantir. And the fact that it doesn't need to be a mixed army. That can, sometimes those just don't exist. Shadow can actually make an effort to make sure that doesn't happen. I do that. I make sure that doesn't happen. I think the only exception is in Erebor. I always keep 2 orcs in case I draw hill trolls. But aside from that, I make sure I do everything I can to not mix armies. Unless it's like the home stretch and I don't care. Like if I'm making a big massive army, yeah. I think the only time it can see use consistently is Lorien if you move the North Dunland Isengard regular in there. But yeah, I think flexibility is a 2. Yeah, it's awkward to use, hard to use with your dice, like just difficult to play, and it requires a restriction. It has a restriction, and then you still have to get lucky on the roll. So it's a lot of things going against it. It's a fun card though. I do enjoy the theme of it, but I am going to give its flexibility a 2. But yeah, so it'd be 5, 5, so 10 total. So it goes in B. Lots of B's. Alright, Path of the Woses. So this is if Rohan is at war, they can teleport to Minas Tirith. If it's not under siege, if it is under siege or conquered, they can teleport adjacent to it. So Path of the Woses is the very definition of fear. It's very similar to Nazgul Strike, where it doesn't do what it does. You'll never see it get used to do that unless Shadow just really fucked up. But the threat of it makes Shadow waste some dice. Do we incorporate that into its overall ranking? I kind of did with Nazgul Strike, but Nazgul Strike had a lot of things it still did, both military and corruption. Even if they don't play Mithril, you still get the roll for the hunt. I mean, it still does something. Yeah, this card can just straight up be turned off permanently. Not only is Rohan getting to war before Gondor is dead, that's not common, despite what the actual story would say. It's not the most common, but the fact that Shadow just turns it off by putting orcs in all adjacent regions, you just cannot play this card. It's pretty bad. Rohan and dwarves are the two least likely to be at war unless the free people want them to be. Doesn't help. So I think it's a 1. Yeah, it's not great. Sudden Strike. So we talked about Sudden Strike on the character cards. It's another mix. This is you roll before the fight, you roll 1 die for every leader and then score hits on 5s. Yeah, Sudden Strike, or I guess not 5s, score hits on what you would normally score on in that combat. So if you're attacking a stronghold, it's a 6. Sudden Strike I like way more than Charge because not only is the restriction not kind of banking on how a combat goes, leaders are just overall good to have, and even if you have 1 regular in your army and you have 4 leaders, Sudden Strike still has its full value. It doesn't matter how many hits you take. It's like the anti-Charge. Charge wants you to have a massive army, which as free people is not usually common. Sudden Strike's way more doable. I'm drawing a blank on what I gave it. I think I definitely gave it a 3 or a 4. I think it's a 3. Yeah. Yeah, I can't fully remember. No, I think I gave it a 4. I think, like, thinking about it now, I think it's a 4. If I didn't give it a 4, shame on me. I think it's a 4. I think it's really easy to use, and yeah, if you only have the 1 leader, it doesn't do much, but you know, that's probably some personal bias showing between my Charge and Sudden Strike hatred, but at least with Sudden Strike, you can just use it every turn if you had multiple, unlike Charge. Yeah, I'll give Sudden Strike a 4. And then Flexibility is a 1. Yep. So it goes up to 6 into D. So no Fs yet. Alright. Through a Day and a Night. So this is if a companion's in an army, they get to just move 2 spaces. Similar to just normal moves, so you can't materialize through an enemy army, but yeah, it's really good effect. So I will account for its just card restriction of companions in the effect itself. Yeah, I think it's just a 3 because you need companions on the board and they need to be in armies. So I don't know. Maybe that's too low. Maybe it's a 4. I think it's a 4. I think this card is extremely strong, but sometimes it's not that kind of game. I think that's the mindset of it. If it's a full defensive game, like attacking is suicide, why would you? This card technically doesn't really accomplish much. Like moving an army 2 spaces, what's that get you when you're trying to defend your strongholds? Maybe to reinforce something, but you almost never see this used for that way, which is the canon use of that line. But yeah, maybe I've just not had those. Maybe it's my fault. I haven't done it, but usually, almost always, it's a, oh shit, they're in front of my shadow stronghold. Whoopsie. So I'll give it a 4. Again, I think it's not a 5 because it requires the companion. So, and it's usually used as offense. But I guess the usually used on offense thing is more of a flexibility thing, I think. But the companion restriction, I am going to add to its effect as a slight downgrade. Like that's just the effect of the card, and that makes it harder to use. So it's a 4. Confusion. We didn't talk about this one. Last one. This is you play it. If Shadow rolls any 1s on their combat, they take a hit, and notably that dice is bye-bye, so they don't get to re-roll it. So if they roll 2 1s, you've basically just daylighted them. I think this is an extremely good card, or a good combat effect. It just unfortunately also has the chance to whiff. It's like no quarter, where it's a great effect if it works. If it does nothing, that sucks. Now, what's the rating? Yeah, I think I'm willing to give Confusion a 3 because at the end of the day, it's a 1 in 6 chance for them to make it do something per die. That's not high odds. If you're looking statistically, they should almost get a single one on their combat. Because it's not their leader reroll, it's just their combat. The Nazgul are, in fact, not confused. It is just the grunts. So, yeah. I mean, this card will win you games. It's similar to Onslaught in a way, even though the odds aren't the same. Onslaught can win you games, even though it's really risky. This isn't technically risky for you to play. It's just, if you had a Daylight and a Shield Wall, you're risking things by playing this instead. Stuff like that. Yeah, I think I'm happy with the 3. Has a chance to be great and has a chance to be nothing, which sounds average to me. So, 4, 3, and then flexibility, that's where Through a Day and a Night will get hit hard. I think it's a 1. You need a companion there, which we already talked about, but what I was talking about earlier, how are you going to use this defensively? It's not common or even possible usually, unless you really wanted to move an army and then throw them at a enemy army that's besieging somebody, which would be cool. It's the canon use of it, but yeah, you don't. It's mostly military, and if military, it's just not a thing. Even if you have the perfect army to use it on, but Shadow's at 8 points, well, it's not going to do anything for you. So yeah, I think flexibility is a 1. It's not very flexible at all. Either you're set up to use it or you're not. And you can take steps to set it up, but you're altering your game plan heavily just for 1 card. So, yeah. So 4, 3, and then 1. So 8. So Through a Day and a Night is a C. Last card, Wisdom of Elrond. You muster a nation and you activate them. So it's pretty good. The problem with it is the activation doesn't usually help much in base game. Again, this card is just better in expansions, when the Witch King just doesn't come out for a while, usually. I think the only value this card gives you is it lets you muster with a Palantir. However, sometimes mustering is actually a bad thing. So if you use this card on Rohan, it's actually pretty good. But sometimes mustering's a trap, in base game at least, I find. If you muster the elves a lot, turn 1, you end up usually just giving them the Witch King, so then, yeah, you get an extra elite somewhere, and then that elite dies from Deadly Strife, and how much did you really accomplish? And guess what? They only had that Deadly Strife because they were cycling with the Witch King. Yeah, there's a lot of things that go into that. Getting a nation straight to war using musters, if you can't get a lot of value for it, ends up usually biting you in the ass. Musters are better spent after you've been put to war. Muster the other places, which is why the base game strategy for Shadow is to just slam your head into the enemy armies as fast as possible to minimize card draws, to reinforce, and to make sure that they get their Witch King and those strongholds do get taken. There's initial ones that put the nation to war. Yeah, it doesn't have much value in base game, I don't think. You very rarely see it played. I think if you do the whole separate multiple companions early game, get Aragorn. Yeah, Wisdom of Elrond doesn't help Gondor, but I'm saying when it's that kind of game where 4 companions are on the board and they're using their abilities to muster, and there's just too many threats for Shadow to efficiently put the big one under siege quickly. Yeah, then it has value, but that's a very niche kind of gameplay style. So I think it's a 2. I think it's nice to have a muster with a Palantir if you want it, but it's not technically. It's a political muster, not a muster, I should say. It's like kind of half of one. You can do one thing, can't do the important thing of actually bringing in a unit. I do think this card was heavily buffed in Kings. I do not remember what it did, but I think it needed it. So I'm giving it a 2. Confusion. Shit, what did I give Confusion? I gave Confusion a 3, right? Yeah, 3. And then flexibility. This is actually a pretty flexible card. I think this is an extremely flexible card. Having the option to do the effect, even if it's not that amazing, it is nice to have. Being able to put a nation to war with a Palantir without burning a ring, that is a nice effect if you need it. And if you don't need it, you have Confusion. I think it's actually a 5 in flexibility. I think it has a lot of potential for both of the effects, even if one of them's not the strongest thing in the world. Yeah, so 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It is a 10. Once again in B. And that ends my Free People strategy card ratings. So, yeah, I actually didn't expect there to not be any Fs. That's kind of surprising. But maybe it's just the way I value certain combats. Like Path of the Woses and Help Unlooked For were the two I expected to be an F. I knew Last Battle would probably, like, Last Battle couldn't possibly be an F because of Daylight. That's 5 points right there. So it's going to be in D. But yeah, I did expect those two cards to be an F. Yeah, it's strictly because I gave Sudden Strike a 4. Here's the thing. Do I judge Sudden Strike differently because it's now in the strategy deck? It feels a little goofy, but at the same time, I did say I am judging them based on their deck. If we're comparing Sudden Strike to Daylight, Valor, Shield Wall, I think it's more closer to Charge. I don't think it's a 4. Maybe it's a 3. Yeah, so if I were to retroactively kind of judge it based on this deck, maybe it's an F. Which probably looks more accurate. Yeah, I mean, hey, we can change our minds. Yeah, I think when you're comparing Sudden Strike to the rest of these, like in the character deck, you were comparing Sudden Strike to Brave Stand and God, what else do they have? Freaking yeah, Brave Stand, Daring Defiance, Heroic Deaths. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. There were bad ones, right? Mighty Attacks. Yeah, okay. Mighty Attack was one I was thinking of. I was like, yeah, when comparing Mighty Attack to Sudden Strike, I do think Sudden Strike's way on the higher end of that kind of thing. But when compared to these cards, I do think it's worse. So, okay. Now I'm happy. Yeah, Sudden Strike 3 and then 2 1s makes it an F. Yeah, Path of the Woses does not deserve to be in the same place as Power Tom Bombadil, I don't think. Yep. So here's my fixed rating. Yeah, a lot of S's, but the Free People strategy deck is very good. That's why it is the one that is always drawn from, unless you're just praying for Mithril. Yeah, Power 2 Great not being an S kind of surprised me, but that's due to how I value No Quarter, which is probably a hot take. I just don't like it as much as the others. I mean, I still rated it decent. I just don't think it's like top of the chain, beautiful. I think, well, yeah, I was gonna say Riders is high, but it has Daylight. A lot of B's. I think all the cards in C, D, F all make sense. I kind of expected them to be lower, except for Curidan Ships. That is just due to my hatred of Charge and, of course, the flexibility issue. I'm not gonna explain it all again, but I think I made my point on that. It's all the other recruitment cards are playable at any point. Curidan's requires the elves to actually be at war. That can hurt. That can hurt significantly. Not to mention, say they play Corsairs, put Dol Amroth under, and then you start rapidly mustering the elves with all your muster dice. You just put a big sign on your hand that said, I have Curians. So then they can kind of react to that. Yeah. The downside hurts it a little. And then, but mostly it was Charge. I don't like Charge. Tell me how many games have been decided by a Charge. I've seen almost none. It's usually 2 die thrown. Very low chance to even hit any of them. Even if they hit one, how much of a difference does it make? I mean, it's a nice little Hail Mary to throw out if you got nothing to play and you need to play something. But I mean, it's attached guards. I think that's why guards also made it to B. It's a great card, but if Minister is taken, I've never been happy to be stuck with Charge. I just play it for 1 die, usually whiff and move on. Yeah. But that is my rating. Let me know what you think. This is the final one. Maybe I'll do an expansion one in the future. We shall see. But until then, have a good one. Bye bye.